Let's check out the control room. They're tracking a song right now, I believe. Everything out there is mic'd, has a microphone on it, and then it runs through a patch-based system into the control room. Goes into the console here, and then from there it gets routed into Pro Tools through the interface back here, and then shows up on the screen in a waveform type. So when it's recorded, it looks like waveforms like these, and then from there it comes out the speakers to us, and we can manipulate it on the screen. Audio off of a drum or off of a guitar or off of a bass or anything is a naturally occurring waveform. So it uses air to move the air particles so that we can hear it. So we have to take that and capture it and turn it into something a computer can understand or a CD player can understand. So that's what Pro Tools does with this and these two interfaces right here. So what they do is the signal comes in. Here's Paul coming in right here with the keyboard that you can hear in the background. So it takes that waveform and it takes little pictures of it, like a digital camera does, and those little pictures then get reformed into a waveform right here, and then it gets turned back into naturally occurring waveforms through the speaker so that we can hear it with our ears. Well, you take all of these tracks, which are different, each one is a different instrument, and then you make them all mixed down to 2 tracks, which would be considered stereo, which is like a stereo, 2 speakers. So in a situation like this, where I've got all these different sounds playing back at the same time, here's an example. So right now, I can manipulate any sound that I want to at the moment. So if I want a lot of synthesizer, I can turn it up, or I can turn it back down. Or if I want a lot of guitar, or if I want to hear the drummer playing lots of kick drum, or if I don't. And then with the vocals, or I can take the vocals and I can make them sound different. So I can take the sound of his vocals and make it sound very wet. Or I can dry it up so it sounds like he's singing in a small room or a really big room. And that's how you mix stuff together.
You talk about soloing and muting stuff?
Sure. So if I want to hear something by itself, like the vocals, or let's say I want to hear the tambourine by itself. So now I have just the tambourine all by itself, and I can move it around to one speaker, to the left speaker, or over to the right speaker. Or if I don't want the tambourine at all, I can get rid of it completely. So same with the vocals, I can solo them, move it around, so that way I can focus in on one sound at a time and manipulate it in a way that sounds good with everything else.
I'm Dino Scavo, and I play bass for the JPS Trio, and we're just going to take you through, I guess, a bit of a tour of our studio here.
We put up these sound panels. They're made out of a carpet type material, and they're all around to soak in some of the sound. And on the roof even, it's treated with this blanket stuff so that we don't have as many negative, bad sounds. We have really good sounds and we can control it.
This is a room where the performers stand in and basically play their instrument. Kind of have it sectioned off a little bit. There we have some keyboards in the corner here. Bit of an assortment. We also have a Hammond organ.
And each drum is individually mic'd. We have what is called 2 overhead microphones, and they're on boom stands. And the way this is working is they're placed directly or closely to directly over where the sound waves come up from the cymbals. So on this microphone here, this is called a condenser 2 microphone. Now there's a little tube inside of this that heats up, and it gives it a nice warm blend of a sound. So it's not so trashy or tinny, you know, would be the word, because sometimes cymbals tend to sound like that when they're recorded. So on this boom microphone that's placed over here, now this will catch this crash. This one's going to pick up what's called a ride cymbal and a second crash. We have a smaller condensed microphone. This snare drum has a specific microphone here which just picks up the top of the snare itself. On the top of the drum we use what's called Shure betas. There's a kick drum microphone, and this is a neat. We place it directly inside the kick drum, but if you get a look at it, it's quite a large microphone. And this has because it needs to be large because the diaphragm that it is designed specifically to get the low end of the kick, because the kick is very bassy.
That way you have total control over every sound that comes from the recording room.
This here is the guitar room. It could also be used as a vocal booth, but this is called an ISO booth, and ISO is short for isolation.
So I could shut the door?
And you're not gonna...
Oh, okay.
It's quiet, very quiet. This is an amplification head, and this sends the signal of the guitar into the speaker cabinet. This is an old style tube amp, which uses the older technology of tubes, so you get a warm, bluesy tone out of that. A lot of different sounds because we like a lot of different kinds of music.
I as well have the like a lot like John Paul there. I have a separate head or amplifier and speaker cabinet. I actually have another speaker cabinet that I pair with this one here. This one here is an Eden, and it's a 15-inch speaker with a horn. Works really well in the studio. So we have, oddly enough, one of those same Shure microphones that are on Mr. Harmon's drum set, and it really works really well. One of the keys to getting a good studio sound is also experimentation, right? Many microphones work well with many other different things. I chose this head for a number of reasons. I've got an onboard EQ, and EQ stands for equalizer. And what that is you can see all these little sort of sliders here. I can, it's a lot like, you know, your stereo at home, or you can control the amount of treble or bass or mid that I have. I also have 5 different styles, which sort of give me different attacks mainly on the bass. This is what we call a solid state amplifier, which means it's not tube driven.
This is actually called a Shure SM58, and that's the most common rock and roll vocalist microphone on the market. And this is a great microphone for recording a vocal. Now it has such a range that you can actually hear breathing and things like that. If that was on in the room right now and it was quiet in that room, Aaron could hear us breathing if we weren't talking. That's how well that works.
But inside the cage here, there's a little round sort of thing in there. It's called the diaphragm. And that's basically what sort of captures the sound and sends it through the wires. And this just happens to be a great microphone for multi sort of use. We use it a lot for vocals, but you can also do like horns and things like, you know, other percussion and hand claps and things like that. And it's great. It's sort of a set it up, let her go.
Here's a little powered preamp, and then it has tubes in it as well, so it makes the vocals a little more warm, a little more rich.
So the drum sounds are supposed to be recorded so that we get no interference with everybody else, so we need to isolate ourselves. I'm in this big room, so I sound really good. John Paul playing the guitar is in that isolation room, and Dino, his bass signal, it goes through the amp, but his signal also goes directly into the other room, so we can get really good sound.